What's up with it? What's up with it? Oh shit! What I put in the caption? The car scene. Where's it? A car scene? Oh, I'm gonna put down. Was it a car scene? Was it a car scene? Here lately, man, I've been seeing like a lot of videos from a lot of the car guys, a lot of the car gurus and content creators that speak a lot about the car scene. You know, and most of them really actually never. We ain't gonna go there, but a lot of them be speaking about the car scene. A lot of these guys be talking about how the car scene was ruined and how we don't have this or that and how we losing this, that, and the third in the car scene and all this kind of stuff like that. So, what's up? Good morning, Rico. And so I wanted to talk about like the real car scene, how it really was. A lot of people from like let's put it let's kind of do some time frames. Like we in 2025, it's gonna be 2026, right? So a lot of the guys who make a lot of these videos, they like in they 25, between 25 and 30, they make these kind of videos and stuff. So their mind frame and their activity in the car world, from either visualizing it or them being active in it, it's just primarily been within the 2000s, primarily the mid to recent 2000s, probably maybe like 2010 to 2015 up until now is their actual activity range. And so their knowledge and understanding of the car scene, I guess you could say, is a little bit limited if they don't really sit down and actually do the research and know what was going on. A lot of these dudes think that the acceptance that society shows, I'm specifically in America, the acceptance that society shows, they're under the impression that the car scene collectively has always had this acceptance. Whether it's tuner cars, muscle cars, riding customs, low riders, big wheel cars, they're under the impression that we've always had this type of acceptance. They're under the impression that we've always had a large number of car shows, a large number of car events, a large number of car gatherings, places that we can hang out and kick it. They're under this impression that we've always had this we've been accepted culturally. That could be further from the truth. The car culture as a whole, collectively, was not an accepted culture. And it didn't really, and I mean that all the way up until like the early 2000s. It was really not an accepted culture. The only people who kind of could move around prior to the 2000s and not really be bothered was more so the ride and custom guys and some of the muscle car guys. The muscle car guys could kind of move around, not be bothered, and because they wasn't like, they didn't move around in large numbers. You didn't see a large number of guys riding in muscle cars 20, 30 deep unless it was the power tour. Would be the only time you would see a large number of muscle cars and hot rides moving at one time at a sanctioned event. And those guys was older in age, and you know, and so they go through different procedures in putting an event together so that they could do, you know, some of the things that they was doing, the activities they was doing with the power tour and stuff. But as collectively, as a whole, the car scene was not accepted. The drag racing scene, the racing scene as a whole, the lowrider scene, all that stuff was not accepted. And prior to the 2000s, if you was a lowrider, you often got harassed by police. And the further you go back from like the 80s, when you go to the 90s, to the late 90s, to the early 90s, to the 80s, to the 70s, the further you go back, the worse the harassment got. But regardless of, everybody powered through it and pushed through anyway. What's the best Chevrolet ever made? Shit, probably. I don't know. That just depends on who you are. To me, I'm gonna say shit. The '64 Impala for me. My favorite is the '64 Impala and '64 Impala '59. But like, if you actually go with popularity, it'd probably be the '57 Chevy. It's probably because that's the one that's been forever for years. But anyway, so they really wasn't really. The car scene was never really accepted the way people think it is. People think that it's always been this like car scenes where people could just hang out. Like a lot of times, like here recently, the last couple of years, people get mad at the street takeover guys because of the shit that they do, and they like the street takeover guys is ruining car culture and all this kind of stuff. They making us look bad. The way people say the car takeover guys making the society look at the car culture all together. Society's always looked at the car culture like that, period. It's never not looked at the car culture like that. It's only been this small period of time, you could probably say from maybe we could roughly say 2005 to maybe about, I'm gonna say 2020, because it's been like a little rough here with the street takers over. So I'm gonna say 2020. So 2005 to about 2020, when you had the biggest acceptance of car culture across the board, from riding customs, muscle cars, street racing, because you had the Street Outlaws all on TV, the actual sanctioned drag racing, drifting, tuner cars, and big ram cars, and what else you have? So I think that covers everybody. And then the motorcycles, and of course the motorcycles as well. Prior to that, to be somebody that was in car culture, you was an oddball of society. You didn't have that many guys riding around in muscle cars. You had people like, you might be like 1-2 people, here and there that got a muscle car or a hot rod or something like that. The largest car population of group at the time through the 90s and probably maybe like the 80s was the lowriders. That was basically because of popularity of music and TVs and stuff, and they kind of brought on the popularity of it. So you would see large numbers of them moving around and all that kind of stuff. And so then you go through the whole harassment and all that, and so I started driving in the 90s, and I started out as a lowrider. So I started driving, my first car was 97. And so it was a Buick LeSabre, lowrider. Then after that I had a Boxer Caprice that was lowrider. And shit, I went through hell being harassed by law enforcement, going through shit with carjackers and all that kind of stuff like that. Those are the type of things we went through, and as far as in the 90s and stuff. But we went through a lot of harassments and all that kind of stuff like that. But as a whole, every group had issues. The tuner cars, they had issues. They got harassed by law enforcement. The riding custom guys, they got harassed too. If they kind of was doing too much, they got harassed. But the majority of the time with the riding custom guys, if they kept it simple and was just going to their car hops, the burger spots, and just doing their traditional thing, kind of like what you would see and like American Graffiti, nobody really bothered them. And then their numbers really wouldn't be high. You might have like 10, 15, 20 cars or something like that, unless it was an event. And then it would be like a show or an event, and it would be a sanctioned event, and everything would be done. The procedures would be taking place for them to have the activities that they need to have. And as long as they stay within the boundaries of that activities, they was fine. You had the trucking guys and the mini trucking guys doing their thing, but as long as they was in the boundaries of what they was sanctioned to do, they was fine. But once they stepped out of those boundaries and on the open road, you finna get harassed for your car, for your truck being too low or your truck being too high, or your music being too loud, you wheels being too, you finna go through it. You know, and everybody caught it. Everybody caught something. It doesn't matter, black, white, brown, whatever. Everybody caught something because you was an oddball in society. You had this extreme looking ride that was just different from the other cars in society. So you was a natural target for police. So at that time, back in those days, police was so simple-minded. They going for the nail that's sticking up. So you got this loud color, this loud design, or this loud color paint, or these shiny wheels, or this loud system. Boom, they right on you. They messing with you. Most guys, they didn't drive their cars to work. Nowadays, you see a lot of people, they drive their cars to work and they co-workers and everybody love it. Back then, if you drove your cars to work, and depending on what type, if you had a corporate job or something, they looked at you kind of way. If you was a corporate guy and you had a low rider, you never drove that low rider to work. You was a corporate guy, you had a big wheel car, you never drove that car to work. If you was a corporate guy, you could drive a 57 Chevy to work, a 69 Corvette, a 68, 69 Camaro or Mustang or something like that. But anything else other than that, you couldn't drive that to work because you would be judged like you was judged. Big wheel cars and that stuff, you would be judged. You know, unless you just had some type of warehouse blue collar job that nobody cared. Car culture was not accepted. If you pulled up in any parking lot and a large number of y'all started together, y'all got ran off. You pulled up at the parking lot of a park or something, too many of y'all gathered up together, y'all got ran off. That's how it was all them years. The racers, like the street racers, the tuner car guys or the muscle car guys, they would have to go off on a back street somewhere and kind of away from the main streets to do the things and do the activities that they did. All this stuff, like all these different car genres that you could think of, they was all niche groups. It wasn't really a large, everyday, all day seeing these type of guys in traffic all the time. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, you had your certain things that would get popular. Like when Hondas was real popular, you would see a whole bunch of Hondas, and you would have that. But for you to be a car guy, pre-2000, before the 2000s, you was an eyeball. People really thought we was weird. And especially if you was like a dedicated car guy, people really thought we was weird and thought we was like some eyeballs and stuff. And so outside of helping them fix on their stuff, they didn't have no use for us. And so most car groups was just small groups of people in their towns or in their cities or their neighborhoods or whatever the case may be. So when the car scene or the car culture came to be what these young people see it as today, where that started was basically the early 2000s. And to break that down, you can go back as early as MTV used to have a TV show called True Life. This is still before Fast and Furious. This is probably, I want to say, maybe somewhere around 99, 2000, somewhere around there, because this was before Fast and Furious. MTV had this show called True Life, and each episode was a different episode about the real life day-to-day experience of different groups of people. And so they would just go through these different groups of people. Just different groups of people. And name a group of people, they had an episode for those group of people. So they had one specific group on one episode that said, True Life, I'm a street racer. And they followed these tuner car kids, and they was all teenagers at this time. Some of them still in high school, some of them just graduated. And they followed these tuner car kids and just followed them through they whole events of this street racing and stuff. This is before Fast and Furious, mind you. I'm telling you, this is before Fast and Furious. And these dudes is racing these Hondas, and it was a lot of Hondas, but it was like Hondas and Nissan Altimas and Nissan Maximas, Toyota Corollas, and just I'm trying to think of all these different cars. You had a couple of BMW, but at that time they didn't really like racing the German cars, because at that time, to make it simple, they really couldn't tune the German cars, and then at the time they was still expensive, so they was mostly just on Japanese cars for the most part. But anyway, they had that show, and so that was the first time you seen on TV, them showcasing tuner cars being showcased on TV. You had never seen that before, them showcasing something like that on TV. And so by this time, before that, you already kind of seen this surgence of tuner cars come around towards the late 90s. This is probably about, my first time seeing tuner cars was probably 95, 96. The first time I seen like a little meetup of a group of tuner cars was probably like 90, 96, 97. And it was before I started driving. And they was meeting up at this at a Jack in the Box, and they was, at this time you don't really have no support system of like catalogs and parts that you could just buy. I'm telling you, these motherfuckers was using was going to Home Depot and like Lowe's and buying like air duct systems and different type of home plumbing stuff to create cold air intakes. This is what I'm talking about. This is how far I'm talking about. This is what these guys was doing back then. This is before you can go on order off of eBay or go to the speed shop and order stuff. Like, people was just learning what the hell a tuner car was. And so you would only probably have maybe 5, 6 cars, maybe 10 at the most, and maybe only 2 of them is fast. That's what was going on at this time. And this is 96, 97. 98, you see a few more. You know what I'm saying? You start to see them a little bit more. Then the magazines start coming out. And all that kind of stuff. Muscle cars was dying there. You didn't really just see a lot of muscle cars outside of what was new. And the only thing that was out in the 90s was the goddamn Camaro and the Mustang. Dodge wasn't making shit, for a Mustang, for a muscle car platform. And so you had that. And so then you go from that to, what else did they have? You know about the Camaros and the old Camaros, like the 6.8, 6.9 Camaros, and then the fastback Mustangs and all that kind of stuff like that. Because everybody had an old uncle, grandpa, cousin that would tell you about these, shits from back in the day. And you would see them every now and then. But it wasn't this big craze for the stuff. And it wasn't a lot of people driving these things, but you did see them enough to kind of know what they was. One of the hot items at that time was street rods. Street rods was like a expensively customized hot rod that was like based off of platforms like the 32 Ford or 32 to 31 to 32 Fords, the 30s Chevys, the same ran like 30 something Chevys, and just all of them cars from like the early 30s and all that kind of stuff. T-buckets and high boys. You had the Willys trucks. You had all those would be in the category of street rods. And so the whole thing was that they would get this drastic rake in the front where they would slam the front down. The back would be basically lifted up just depending on the owner's taste. They would have a big ass wide wheel in the back and a skinny ass wheel or, in the front, a narrow wheel in the front. They was either chromed or polished to the guys. That motherfucker be chromed and polished so goddamn shiny. They would polish aluminum so much it looked like chrome. The whole engine bay looked like just a block of goddamn chrome, because it just be so much polish and chrome on this motherfucker. Everything was about the more chrome the better. And then it would be like, this expensive ass paint job. They was the only people at that time that was spending like $5,000-$10,000 on paint jobs. It was the street rod guys, you know, and so that was the big deal at the time. And so it's like, it was kind of, if you look up, if you don't know what a street rod is, the fastest way, if you look up Boyd Coddington builds, and you see his cars, those were street rods. Those was basically street rods. And so they even had a nickname later on as Boysters, because he was one of the people that, not the only person, but he was one of the people who, you know, pushed that whole scene and pushed that. He's the reason why, if you a builder, not only Chip Foose is one, but Boyd is one of the people, not the only one, but one of the people who is the reason why, if you're a builder today and you're making over 6 figures on the goddamn build, he is one of the people that's an actual person that contributed to the reason why you're making 6 figures on the build, because of him. But anyway, those was the only people who was, you know, building and putting a whole lot, hundreds of, you know, thousands of dollars into a goddamn car and doing all that kind of stuff like that. And, you know, pushing that kind of line. You know, nobody else was doing that. None of the other car scenes was putting that much money. The lowriders was, you know, because they was chrome and gold plate and every goddamn thing too. But, you know, it was a little bit different. But anyway, still, even with that, they still wasn't accepted. Even though, you know, everybody had to operate in this small boundary of society. And if you stepped out of that boundary, you knew you stepped out of that boundary. And it didn't matter who you was. It didn't matter what type of car you was driving. It didn't matter what type of custom car you was driving. You knew when you stepped out the boundary of where you was supposed to be. And so it just is what it is, because society wasn't accepting of you being different. And then if you even go back to like way back when they first started really pushing custom cars and riding customs and all that kind of stuff, society hated custom cars. They had movies that had propaganda against custom cars. You can still look up some of this stuff on YouTube. Some of the videos and some of the content is on YouTube, and you can look it up. These old black and white movies where they were like just would depict people who was in the custom cars and hot rods as horrible, evil degenerates of society. That's the image, as well as the motorcycles. The same image that they put for riding custom guys, the same image went for motorcycle guys. No matter if it was a cruiser or a sports bike, it was the same image. And so it was like they, for years, we all collectively, no matter what you was into, we was always depicted as the degenerates of society, because why would you spend so much time focused on an automobile? Why would you spend so much money on an automobile? Why would you, you know, this is how society looked at us. And then because a lot of the stuff that we do was breaking the law, and or it wasn't even breaking the law. It looked like it was breaking the law. A car, because if every other car on the road is sitting 10 feet off the ground, and you come through there at 2 feet off the ground, society thinks something is wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody else is fucking 10 feet. I mean, everybody else is like fucking 1.5 feet off the ground. You come through that motherfucker and you 2-3 inches off the ground. You know, society mindset is something is wrong here. You know, and it's like, and everybody who thinks that's cool, society is like, oh, it's something wrong with you. Because if you're not like everybody else, society is like, it's something wrong with you. And so, especially when you go way back in the day, that's how they pushed it. And so they would just make a law like, oh, it's illegal to have your car that low. Even though nobody's been killed, nobody's been injured from a car being too low, no, this just gotta be dangerous. It's illegal. That's how it went. And so fast forward, and so you think society is so modern, people have advanced so far. Just fucking last year or the year before, I think it was last year or the year before, North and South Carolina just passed a fucking law where they banned them trucks from doing the Carolina squat. And I think the law even stretched. I think they passed a similar law in fucking Florida. Now, Florida, I'm not 100% for sure, but Earlier this year, when a bunch of them trucks went to Florida, they was giving them tickets like a motherfucker for having that back end so low to the point to where when the police pulled in them parking lots, them dudes already knew it, so they came prepared. So they had to lift their trucks back up, and fix that shit before they left the parking lot. And so even in today, they have not had not one wreck caused nowhere in America from a truck being squatted in the back. The way that they be squatting the back so fucking low, it looks ridiculous as hell. But they don't have not one record on books. The people from Donut had did a study to see if it's been any wrecks that's been documented as being caused by a truck being squatted in the back. There's not been one wreck. But yet and still they say this is dangerous. They've even went as far as to say people have been hurt in accidents because of trucks like this, even though there's no document of a truck being like that. And so they've outlawed it in a couple of states to where if you get a fine, I think in North or South Carolina, whichever one it is, like they'll take your license if you get too many tickets for it, if you get fined too many times, they take your license. They just take your license. I don't know if it's for a period of time, I don't know the full legality of it, but they'll give you a few tickets, you keep doing it, or they keep pulling you over, they just gonna take your license. It just is what it is. So society mind frame hasn't changed, and so, but my point is to stay on track with my point. Society has never been accepted of custom car culture. They've never been accepting of the guy or the girl that stands out in the crowd. Society wants us all to be sheep and look the same and move in the same direction. Anytime we kick against that, it's causing a problem, it's causing an issue. They still work today to try to keep us in the box, and they've even teamed up now with the automakers to try to lock us back in this box, and I'll get to that part later. But to get to the main topic of the car scene, the younger guys that's been riding since the mid 2000s up to now, they kind of came in under this impression because when they came in the game, the car scene was at its peak. It was booming. It was like SEMA was booming. Like this SEMA this year was the most horrible SEMA ever in fucking years. And they've never had a SEMA this fucking disappointing in ever. And so these younger car guys is like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? They think it's the end of the fucking world. Because when they came into the car game or the car scene, the car world, car culture, whatever you want to call it, they came in when everything was at its peak. Everything. Companies was dumping money in every fucking car genre you could think of, from riding customs, low riders, tuner cars, everybody getting fucking money, and it was just $100,000 bills, $1 million bills, $50. Everybody's getting. It was magazines for every damn thing you could fucking think of. Many trucks is popping, trucking, off-road 4x4. Everybody is lifting trucks, lowered trucks, big rim cars, dunks. Everybody is hot rods. Everything was thriving when they came in. You go to Cars and Coffee was jumping, and you go to fucking, the music was great. You go to fucking you could go to any goddamn car, or go to any parking lot in your city on a Friday night or Saturday night, and you and your friends could gather, and the police didn't even bother y'all. They let y'all do whatever. They came in and they thought that's just how it was. That's like, they think that's how it's always been. And it hasn't always been like that. It's like it hasn't always been that way. It hasn't always been that way. And so what happened is, how it got like that was when the 2000s come, you got a magazine for every fucking car you can fucking think of. Just name a genre car, you had a magazine for it. It was a magazine for every. Then you even go to the point to where you had published magazines that was published nationwide. Then you had magazines that was published regionally. Then you had magazines that was published statewide. You know what I'm saying? And so then then on top of this, you had the internet is coming more prevalent in the car culture. So then you got car forums, different kind of car forums. No matter what kind of car you was into, you have a forum for that car. You if you love RX-7s, it's a forum for that car. They had a magazine for that car. They got a website for that car. They got shops dedicated to rotary motors and RX-7s. You know, it was all this shit was going on. So that's just one example of everybody. You know, every fucking car had the same thing. Just name the car. It was a place for it to be. You know, and so when you fast forward to the 2000s, and then here comes Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious is one of the first movies of, I'm gonna say the first movie of the 2000s. The first movie of the 2000s to depict a car scene, what would become a car scene. People looked at that as that's the car scene. Everybody car is done. Everybody car is modified. Everybody car looks spectacular. It ain't never been a car scene like that. It's never been a car scene like that ever in fucking life. It just never has. You always, car scenes, if you want to call them that, would always be a full range of a car. If you could picture a car build, a car scene would be a full range of that. You would pull up somewhere with a bunch of cars, and you got a car that looked like it ain't been touched. You got a car that looked like it's just been started. They done went through their first modifications. You'll see a car that's in the process. They done chopped this motherfucker up. It look like it's at they in the no turning back now. They got to go through the whole fucking thing. Then you get to the cars that's finished and that look fucking amazing. And so you have these range of all these different cars at these, you know, these events or these places, these gatherings or whatever. You had like a small handful of cars that was done, that was nice, that was the cream of the crop of the area, or whatever case like that. It wouldn't be every single fucking car like Fast and Furious depicted. But you know, you gotta make a movie look amazing. So we understand that. You know, we've come to understand that you gotta make a movie. You can't make a movie of basic motherfucking cars. So it's like, you know, we understand that. You know, we get it, we understand it. But these young people thought Fast and Furious was reality. We all know because we grew up 70s, 80s, 90s. We all understand. So when we seen Fast and Furious, we all understood like what the movie was, what it was about, what it was representing. We had an understanding. We knew it. But a kid born in 2000 seeing Fast and Furious in fucking 2010 and like, oh, they look amazing. They think that's how it's supposed to be. And so it's like they go through the whole process of, okay. All right. And so then you're going through the process of I'm getting ready to pull in, that's why you called. But anyway, so they thinking the Fast and Furious car scenes was reality. Every car at the scene is supposed to be modified. Every car at the scene is supposed to be a top build. Every car at the scene is supposed to be nice. Every car at the scene is supposed to be this cream of the crop, this top-notch build. And that wasn't true, but that's what they believe. Because I know that for a fact, because when they make their videos on the car scene is dying and why is the car scene dying, they always talk about every car at the car scene. You couldn't be at the car scene unless your car was modified. And it's like, that's not fucking true, man. That's everybody's budget and time frame is totally different. You know, it's no possible way. You know, and so it's like, then they were like, well, they respect every build, fucked everything up. It's like, well, no, that's not either. It's what fucked everything up is everybody being able to have access to the scene and knowing what's going on and knowing where to be. That's another story. That's another topic. But That's another topic. I ain't gonna go on that on this video. But when you get, so what made all that stuff happen? So let's get to what made the car scene like it is in the 2000s. It was TV, it was movies, it was basically TV and movie. It was media. It was a lot of media. So what happened? So we had Fast and Furious pumping out movies. They brought a lot of attention to tuner cars. Too Fast, Too Furious brought attention back. Well, Fast and Furious brought a little bit of attention to the muscle cars with that Charge, that black Charge. So it riled up the old motherfucker. So then when Too Fast, Too Furious came out, that kind of brought the conversation of the muscle cars back up because they brought more muscle cars off into that movie. So while the movies is doing that, you also have Gone in 60 Seconds comes out. I think that was 2000 or 2001. Gone in 60 Seconds comes out. You got the Eleanor comes out. That fucked up every car guy, every Mustang, Ford Lover. That just fucked them up. And then all the other cars they showed in that motherfucker, that stirred up a whole motherfucking thing. And so that to the point to where it was a company, they was called Unique, I think it was Unique Performance. You had Unique Whips, which was a custom audio shop with the guy from New York or New Jersey, Will Castro. That was a different shop. But then you had Unique Performance, and they built a replica of the Eleanor. You know, and then on top of that, they had an endorsement whatever you call it, from Shelby. Because in the beginning, when everything was good, they had an endorsement from Shelby. And so, you know, he was signing, autographing those cars. It was like a big deal. Then that shit went south real fucking fast. That's a whole nother story in that motherfucking self. But it caused this big resurgence for the muscle cars. And then also the movies did that. Quentin Tarantino had a movie. I forgot the name of the movie. I can't remember. I don't think it was Kill Bill, but it was a bunch of girls in this movie, and they were driving a white Charger. No, Challenge. They were driving a white Challenge in this movie. That was a big deal. I just don't remember the name of the movie, but it was a Quentin Tarantino movie, and they were driving this white Challenge. It was supposed to be kind of like a throwback to the old movie Breaking Point. I think that's what that movie was called. In that movie, the guy drove a white Challenge in that movie, and so that was a throwback to that. And you know, but had a different twist. But he was driving that car, so that had another spark interest in the muscle cars. So all this media comes from the movies and everything, was sparking all this interest into the muscle cars and stuff like that. And so then we go to where we get after that. So then in other movies, I'm pretty sure it was something else. I just probably can't think of it. Fucking Ice Cube had a movie. What was it? I can't remember what the fuck that movie was fucking called. Triple X. He did a movie called Triple X. He had a badass GTO on there. So it was like the movies, Hollywood at this time was putting a lot of muscle cars and tuner cars and lowriders and all this shit in their cars. That was causing an effect on the car scene. Then you had, so then we get back to TV. We get back to cable TV. This is when cable TV was still running everything. You had Speed TV, all this other type of shit running everything. And so you had, obviously you had Pimp My Ride. You had fucking, Pimp My Ride was a show. Then after Pimp My Ride came out first, then once Pimp My Ride came out, then you had Overhauling came out. Then Overhauling brought the buzz back. Pimp My Ride made younger people more interested in cars. Overhauling brought the old people back to cars and made other old people interested in cars. And then brought back the attention back to the I can't even see this motherfucker. And brought attention back to the muscle cars. And so So that's what Overhauling did. But Overhauling wasn't the only show. Before all that took place with Pimp My Ride, Overhauling, you had Powerblock TV, you had Horsepower TV, trucks, 4x4, Two Guys Garage. There was another show, I can't remember the name of that goddamn show. Okay, there goes some mine right there. I can goddamn, I can see the motherfucker. I still can't see shit. I missed that goddamn trash. But y'all gotta give me a minute. I gotta get this motherfucker in here. But yeah, but like my point is, I can go on and on about the TV stuff because there was a whole lot of TV shows. And at the same time, all this stuff is going on for the cars. The same shit is going on for the motorcycles. So you got the resurgence. You got the Orange County Choppers is going on. You got give me a sec, man. Give me a sec. I can do it. I can see the flip. Heavier than a motherfucker. It's like this fucking container heavy than a bitch. Okay. There we go. Now I can see. Almost back. Almost back. Yeah, almost back. Get this motherfucker. Try it, baby. Yeah, so let me just get this shit out the way. I know that motherfucker beeping on the goddamn thing. But yeah, but there was a lot going on at the time. There was a lot going on at the time with the my point in all that, because I kind of got out a little bit off track with the car scene stuff. So my point in saying all that was that from all the movie coverage of muscle cars, tuner cars, low riders, and motorcycles, then on TV you had a lot of coverage between the TV networks of custom builds, and from custom builds, custom cars being made, custom cars being restored, custom cars being repaired, cars being modified, cars being invented, motorcycles being customized, restored, and built, and all that kind of stuff. You had all this stuff going on with automotive, with the custom automotives. So all this stuff started probably, Fast and Furious came out in 2001. Pimp My Ride came out. Fast and Furious came out 2001. Pimp My Ride came out, I believe, was 2001 or 2002, and I believe Overhauling came out the same year. I believe Overhauling came out the same year as Pimp My Ride, but they came out after, because it was like, I think they came out later in the year. I know they came out after because like Pimp My Ride was a big deal. And so it was a big deal. It was a big success. A lot of people was watching it. Then Overhauling came out. And then they came with a different spin where they act like they was stealing the people's cars, all that other kind of stuff like that. But they wasn't on the shows. Before them, you had the Power Block. And the beginning of the Power Block was called something else. Like whoever runs that Power Block stuff with muscle car TV, horsepower, trucks, Two Guys Garage, all that whole platform, the whole run of shows. Whoever runs that, those people have done an impeccable fucking job, because they've been on TV, I think since maybe 99 or 98 or something like that. When I was watching them, I still stayed with my mama when I found them. And I think they was on TNT or TNN. It was one or the other. And that dude Stacey Graves that got Gears, he was on trucks, and he had a partner. And you can find them episodes on YouTube as well. I came across them the other day, a couple weeks ago. And because I could never remember his partner. The guy from Horsepower TV that recently passed, he was it Horsepower TV or Muscle Car? I think it was Muscle Car. He had a partner that was a Mexican guy, this big heavyset Mexican guy. And when the show first came on, and they ran that show for years, and then that guy had retired. And he didn't retire. He left the show because he had his own shop, and he, went to go focus on his own shop and stuff. And then the show goes into all the stuff we would see it come through over the years. But my point is, it was once you get to around 2005, between that span of 2005 and I'm gonna say '07. I'm gonna take that back. I'm gonna say 2005 to 2010. You had so many goddamn TV shows. It was every prominent automaker at that time. They gave them a show on building their cars, and it was just like, and some of them they shows lasted a lot of seasons. Some of them they just did 1 or 2 seasons. Some of them they just did 1 season. And my point in all this was because all these corporations was dumping so much money into the car culture and bringing so much money into the car culture. West Coast Customs, when they had their TVs, when they broke away from the whole Pimp My Ride thing, they came back with their own TV show. It was so much coverage of car culture between 2005 and probably I'm gonna say 2020, and so many companies was dumping so much money into the scene that that it was just so much money going around. And so that's why when you go to Cars and Coffee, you would see so many cars. That's why when you would go to I forgot what that damn car meet was. It was a car meet that they used to have by the American Airlines Center. I just don't remember what it was called. But they would have a car meet out there, and that was sponsored by Monster. And they had that a couple of times. I went a couple of times. They had it a few times. I went a couple of times. They were sponsored by Monster. The second time I went, it was still sponsored by Monster. And then it was sponsored by another company. And the reason why I say that was because Monster actually had a car there. And then there was a guy there giving away free goddamn Monsters. Then at the second one, it was another company and that was giving away another energy drink. But Monster was still there. But I remember the energy drink, it was blue. I mean, not blue, it was orange. I just don't remember what it was. But they didn't have a car. They just had the drinks and the fucking table and the whole thing. As soon as you walked into or as soon as you drove in, walked in or drove in, whichever one you did, they had a fucking table, ice chests and shit, and they had the energy drinks. Monster was still there because they had this guy that had a fucking black, it was a black Viper with the Monster logos and shit. And he was sitting there. And so they had, you have Monster energy drinks and all that kind of stuff. They giving away first come, first serve type shit. And so they dumping money into a fucking car meet. That's why you had the goddamn car meet, because the company was dumping the money into the car meet. They had to pay for that spot to have the car meet. They just wasn't having a car meet just for the sake of having a car meet. It was a sponsorship thing. You know what I'm saying? That's really what it was. And so what was going on at that time between 2005 and fucking 2020, you had these companies that was dumping millions and probably billions of dollars into the automotive custom car industry. And so it gave it this look of that everything was actually bigger than what it may have really was. Well, it was what it was. It really was that big. But the money was being poured into it. It was money on top of money on top of money. Everybody was working. Everybody was working overtime. Everybody was getting to the money some type of way. Crypto going on. People scamming. What's that goddamn thing? That damn what the fuck is that goddamn thing called? GameStop. What's the GameStop? I think it's GameStop. The GameStop stock thing was going on. It was money going on. Money. Everybody had money. Like, wasn't nobody. So everybody had money to put in their cars. Companies had money to dump in the car scenes. Companies had money to sponsor car shows. Companies were sponsoring Dub show, Lowrider show, Tuner this show, Muscle Car this show, whatever this and all this other kind of shit. All this money was going around. So these young people that they coming to the car world in the mid 2000s. They coming in the car world in 2010, 2015, and 2020. Everything dies off, and they like, what the fuck happened? Why is the car down here in 2025? And they like, why the hell is the car scene dying? And it's like, bro, man, it ain't never been like that. Like, you know, it just is what it is. It's like, it ain't never been like that. It ain't never been like that, bro. You know what I'm saying? I hate to bust your bubbles, man. Like, society ain't never loved us like that, man. Society has always hated us. Society has never loved the core culture, man. It's like, you know, people, society has never loved the core culture. And so the last 10, 15 years, the core culture was at its peak. Now, what the next, you know, 5, 10 years gonna look like, you know, we only gonna know. We don't know. We gotta, you know, see how shit go. Right now, judging from SEMA, I don't know. Everything look kind of shaky right now. You know what I'm saying? To be honest, everything look kind of shaky. We don't know how shit gonna go. You know what I'm saying? But one thing I do know for a fact. The real is gonna last, and the fake is gonna fade away. That's one thing I do know. All the people who really love this shit, and love this car shit, or love this motorcycle shit, and it's really about this car life, and really about this bike life, really about race life, really about tuner life, really about whatever genre of automotive you into. The people who really about that life is the people you still gonna see 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. If Lord say the same, and they still living and breathing, you still gonna see them doing the same motherfucking thing. And it don't matter if they got 100 customers now, and you see them 20 years from now, and they only got 5 customers now. They still gonna be the same thing. You know, one motherfucker I got a lot of respect for is Paul motherfucking Senior. I got a lot of fucking respect for Paul motherfucking Senior, because that motherfucker went from a guy that nobody knew, building a brand with him and his son and a few friends, to becoming world fucking renowned, having millions of fucking customers and bringing probably hundreds of millions of dollars in, to circle all the way back around. Now, he claimed he don't have all the millions of dollars no more, but he said that he comfortable and he fine. He got enough money to last him for the rest of his life. You know, which I believe him. I still believe he got millions of dollars though. But you know what I'm saying? But that's just me being me. But you know, but because he wasn't dumb by no means. He wasn't dumb by no means. He's a businessman. But my point is, he went from having all that glory and all that being on that high pedestal and circle right back around. And what is he still doing today? He's still building motherfucking motorcycles. Him and another guy, I think they said it's just him and one other guy. He still got a shop somewhere in Florida. And he got a shop, and I think it's next to his, he got a shop and a bar. They right next to each other. Through all the ridicule and the losses and the downsizing and all that kind of shit, that motherfucker is still building motorcycles. Still building clean ass motorcycles. To me, that says a lot. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's real. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's what real is. I don't give a fuck if you black, white, brown. To me, that's what real is. You know what I'm saying? When you sit up there, when you go up and you go down. You know what I'm saying? And down don't necessarily mean a bad thing. You know what I'm saying? You just had your time, you was up, you was peaking, and now you just, don't went down there. It goes with everybody. It's just part of life, bro. It's just because you come back down, that shit don't mean nothing, that don't mean nothing bad. It ain't nothing wrong with that. Like, I don't feel that somebody of his caliber or somebody like him, even if it's another person that's going through the same situation or being in the same situation, I don't see them any different. It's like, it's just like a music artist. I can see a music artist that goes 3, 4, 5 times platinum. And today, they sell 5,000 copies if they put an album out. You know, but they doing what they love. That's real. You know what I'm saying? And that's how this car shit gonna be. The motherfucking real people who really in this, who really love this shit and doing this shit because they love it, they still gonna be doing this shit. You know what I'm saying? The people who love doing whatever it is, when all the hype and all the shit is gone, they still gonna be doing it. They still gonna be doing it. You know what I'm saying? When all the cameras is gone, they still gonna be doing it. You know what I'm saying? When all the hype and the fame, and stay true to you, man. Stay true to you. Stay true to what you got going on. To all the young people, man, you know, I'm sorry y'all came in at the time y'all came in, man. You know, it was fun. You know what I'm saying? It was a lot going on from 2005 to 2020. You know what I'm saying? But hey, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. It is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But I appreciate y'all, you know, checking in, and anybody that doubles back and watches this. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? Like, share, subscribe. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate everybody, you know, checking in with me, watching this video. You know what I'm saying? Riding with me, hanging with me while I go through my work day. You know what I'm saying? I'll holler at you. I'll catch y'all on the next one.